Hello, this is just a short video just going back over the 3 pillars model, just to give everybody another chance to look at how I structure it, how I talk to my clients about it as well. So just going back quickly, the reason why we do it like this is that to try to work with depression or anxiety as a whole, it doesn't work very well with the eye movement stuff. Okay, it's not like counseling. So we need to start breaking the different components out. Now, when I'm working with a client, I always use this. Okay, I always do it visually. I write it out for them once we start to talk about this. So I don't have it written on the board already. I've done it both ways. I've done it verbally and visually, and this way tends to be so much better. So once we've gone through the test of pattern, the think of something from the past that's unpleasant in some way and vivid when you think about it. Once I've done that, and then I've gone on to the, okay, so the reason why you've come today, do you have an emotion, state of mind or feeling that's a problem for you? Go through that, okay, complex pattern with that one. And then the minute we've got through the process on that, regardless of, so once we've got through, if it changes picture and we've gone on and done another pattern and another pattern, whatever, once we've got past that bit, I'll introduce this. Now, the reason I do that is because most people who have been into other types of therapies won't have seen this. This is very unique to the IMT structure. Now, I always explain it as I'm going along, and the reason I write it out as I'm talking about it is because I can start to introduce things rather than them seeing all of these words that become a little bit overwhelming and a little bit not really sure. So what I do is I write the first column out and I'll explain that, okay, about the rules. So this is about rules, our own unique rules, the do's and don'ts of life, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, the unwritten laws, even the cultural things that kind of fit into how we structure our own beliefs and values. That is all about the first column. Okay, so we are taught, or we learn to feel guilt from a very young age. I think that's probably one of the first things that most people learn. Okay, what guilt is. Now, it's introduced, I think, very flippantly by parents normally, and it's normally when we're really young. So we're doing something that's annoying them, so they'll tell us not to do it, and they'll give us this, oh, don't do that anymore because you're going to upset your grandma or something. So they'll put these little things in that kind of control what we do. Now, as a start point, that guilt is just, okay, I won't do it anymore. It's not overly bad. We learn how to get better at feeling shit as we get older. Okay, but that's where we start with that sort of thing. So that will be initial imprint for a lot of people. Okay, so the first time they can remember. And this is one of the other reasons why I explain all this to a client as well, because most people, again, don't realize. If I said to people, just when's the first time you can remember feeling guilt? First point of access. It's the worst time they can remember, not the first time. Well, it doesn't work going backwards very well. So we need to go initial imprint, and this is why I do this structure as well, about learning. So guilt, we all know what guilt feels like. Regret is when we break a rule and it has an impact directly on myself. Okay. Keep this simple because people don't want to get confused about how they're supposed to be processing what we're talking about. So keep it simple. Guilt is what we all know how to feel. I often say to clients, how are you dealing with guilt? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, I'm not very good at dealing with guilt. So that's okay. Regret is when we break one of our own rules, beliefs, or values, and it has an impact directly on me. Remorse is where we break one of our own rules, beliefs, values, and it has an impact directly on somebody else. Okay, so something we have done has impacted somebody else in some negative way. And shame, again, keeping this simple because there are advanced considerations to have around shame, around identity, but we don't really want to go into that with the client because they won't understand that. And to be honest, when you're first doing your case studies, you don't want to have to think about that either, because it does get a little bit complicated. So shame is one of these things that we can feel, that feels a little bit like guilt, but there's an observer element to shame. Okay, so other people know or have seen, okay, me doing something that's made me ashamed. I can also feel ashamed of myself. Okay, so then we go at stepping into the identity stuff. Right, so that's the first column. Now that, again, I've written up there, is about the past. We tend not to feel guilty about things that haven't happened yet. Okay, we feel guilty about stuff that's happened that we maybe found out. That's a different problem that goes into the anticipatory stuff. But that's about the past, and it's about breaking our own rules. Okay, like I explained in the thing, we don't feel guilty about breaking the speed limit. That's somebody else's rule. This is something else. This is about my beliefs and values. So once I break a rule, this is what happens from the past. Okay, any one of those things in there, I always explain this bit as well, because not everybody has all of these things. Some people may have guilt or shame or regret or one of those things, but not any of the others, and that's okay. Any one of these things will tend to lead to something in this column, the middle column. Now, just going back to this, the only one thing in this first column that's not time dependent is remorse. All of these other ones will stay with you for the rest of your life. Remorse won't. Remorse is one of these things that people forget. The others you don't. Okay, so guilt, regret, remorse, shame, any one of those things will tend to lead to anxiety, panic, worry, one of those types of feelings. Now, some people use different words, and the reason why I've put anxiety and worry in there, some people will describe their experience as anxiety, and other people say they don't feel anxious, but they worry a lot. Okay, they interchange these two words, which is fine. We're just working what we're presented with. So panic is when it steps over the threshold and takes a physiological slant on things. Okay, so this is where the adrenaline buzzing away here trips the threshold and goes into full physiological stuff that we can no longer control. Panic attack, that type of thing. Okay, any one of these things in this column will tend to lead to something in this column: anger, temper, frustration. Now, anger is what we feel. Temper is what we display. Okay. Frustration's the internalizing of those things, which often feeds onto anger then, or even a temper. Okay. Some people say they get angry on the inside, but nobody ever knows. So that would be the frustration stuff. And anything, so going back to here, forgot. This here is about the future. Okay, so anxiety, panic, and worry is about the anticipatory thought processes about what's to come. Okay, but also not knowing the rules, because that's somebody else's thing. And people suffering with anxiety, more often than not, are the people who organize things. They do the list making. They do that stuff because if they can sort it out, they haven't got to feel worried about it going wrong. Okay, so we all have friends like that. Anything in this column, which is about the future, can tend to lead to something in here, which is about the present. Okay, so the here and now. People get angry in the here and now. Like I say, anger, temper, frustration. I will explain these all to the client. Okay, so about past, future, present, because what they don't realize as well is that they will go from different states at different times, but all within this structure. They always understand this, and any one of those things in the third column will tend to lead to something back in the first column. Now, the reason that happens is because most people, we're all okay about getting angry and having a bit of a temper at times when it's in context. But more often than not, these things trip over that context and we go into the arsehole mode of anger or temper, and then we feel bad about that and guilty. I remember probably having a shout at my kids when they were little. I remember my dad used to do it to me all the time. He would kick off massively, and then half an hour later he'd come and apologize because he'd feel guilty. He would go into this bit. He always used to be in here, always quite on the edge. Okay, so how we work with this, we start in here. We ask, is anything in the first column relevant for you? Yes. Okay, so on a score out of 10, how strong is this feeling? We don't need to know what it is. Okay, so they can pick one. On a score out of 10, how strong is the feeling? 10 out of 10. How familiar is this feeling for you? Very familiar. Okay. And when is the first time that you can remember feeling this feeling? Now, I always give an example. I always say, one of my clients, and this is a true story, one of my clients, I did tell this on the training, was best friends with her next door neighbor. This is her first imprint of guilt. She was best friends with her next door neighbor, a little boy, same age, 6 or 7. She went round to his house just before Christmas, persuaded him it'd be a great idea to open all the adults' presents under the tree. And he got grounded. She got sent home. He didn't get any Christmas presents. So bearing in mind, we're going back forward in time 30 years, she feels guilt, massive amounts of guilt for that. So I always explain certain things, and I always explain as well, I always give the timeline stuff while I'm doing this. So this can take me 10, 15 minutes to explain all this. I always explain beginning of time, future, person, the here and now. Say they're 30 years old, okay, 20, 10. If they have 10 events in their life where they feel guilty about, and I get them to think about the first time they can remember, and they go here first, nothing's going to change. I say to them, we need to start at this point, and then it will work its way and make all of these other ones go away on their own, because of a similar type of feeling. So I always explain that bit as well. This is why this is a must to have a board. You can get the small ones, they're okay if you're moving around, going around to different people's places, but this is exactly what I do with a client, because I want them to understand how they are structuring things, and that once we break up these certain things, we can work with those. So guilt, if there was only one thing in there, one in there and one in there. Okay, so how strong on a score out of 10 is that for you, with 10 being as strong as it can be? Blah, blah, blah. Go through the process. Okay, how familiar is this feeling? Yeah, and then how vivid is the memory? Very vivid. Okay, just hold the memory in your mind, and I'll take them through complex pattern. Okay, complex pattern, because that will tend to lead through the other parts of the thing as well. Once we've done that and we've got it down to, it may have just changed the whole thing about how they felt about the initial imprint, or it may have took them through a different process, and we've gone through and we've started off from the last picture again to the next process, to the last picture again, to the next process, until we get to either no change or something different, pleasant comes up. Then we'll move on. Then I go to this column, anger, temper, and frustration. We work with whatever again, but because they can feel these in the here and now, because it's about the past and they kind of live in them times, but they get stuck. Anger, temper, and frustration for a lot of people isn't one of those things they can just pull up. So we go again. When's the first time you can remember feeling this feeling? So it's back here again. Normally as children, I think, more often than not, the kids. And again, what I always do with this, okay, anger, if it's just anger and they don't have a temper, they don't actually display it, but they just shout a lot or whatever. So the anger, I'll go with that. Okay, so when's the first time you can remember feeling this feeling? You know, get a score out of 10, how bad it is when it is a problem. And more often than not, it's a 10 out of 10 if it's a real issue for them. Okay, and how familiar is this feeling? How familiar it takes them back over time to see how much of a problem that is for them. And when is the first time you can remember feeling this feeling? again, going back and really explain that initial imprint is so important. We really need to go and find the first time they can remember feeling that way. Okay, do an eye pattern, simple pattern, simple pattern. Hold that memory. Just keep hold of that memory, the basic pattern. Just keep thinking of that memory, just take them through. Don't let them change. If it goes, don't worry about it, but just keep reminding them to keep bringing the memory back. Vivid, more vivid, the better. Once we get to the end of that process, give them a rest, just break state, chat shit, and then go back in, okay? Go back again. I always say, just get that memory back in your mind again, the same picture, and again, hold it, do the identity pattern with it, okay? I know it's a bit odd, and some of the other trainers won't do this, but I've seen shitloads of clients, and this works a treat. Do the identity pattern with it, finish, do that 6 times each way. Again, just holding that memory, chat shit again, and then go back in. Okay, so in this column, when is the first time that you can remember somebody else feeling this way? Okay, very, very important, because mostly this is learned behaviors. Okay, when is the first time that you can remember somebody else being this way? You don't have to give it a score. It's just kind of a thing. And I always explain as well, it's what you've witnessed. Okay, so you don't have to have been involved in that thing. It doesn't have to be targeted at you. It's just that what you've seen, what you've witnessed. Okay, so it could be parents arguing. It could be one of your other siblings arguing. It could be towards you. It's whatever it is, but it's the first time that they can remember somebody else being that way. Same thing, hold that memory, simple pattern, basic pattern. Again, break state, chat shit for a minute, and then go back in, hold the same picture, identity pattern. More often, well, it's very, very rare that I don't get people stop their anger. Very rare, just from those just few little patterns. Okay, so that's, keep it basic, keep it simple and understandable for the client, because obviously you've done this training, you've done probably a lot of other training as well. You understand the way that the human brain works so much better than a lot of people do. So we don't want to confuse things. Just keep it very simple, but we just need to go back with initial imprint. That's it. Okay. So once we've identified the feeling, yeah, switch off from the feeling, go to the memory that's involved in, and then it's keep hold of that, keep thinking of that memory. Okay. Or we don't mention the feeling again while we're going through the eye patterns. Make sure the client's head still and you're moving their eyes as far as you can in each direction. Okay, so that's a quick visit of the 3 pillars. Any questions, just get in touch. Hopefully that will clear things up on that. And obviously you can just keep watching this back just to give you a bit more of an idea. I'll be putting some more videos out soon. I'll go over the PTSD model as well, just so everybody gets a bit of a handle on that as well. So thank you for watching. Well done. Speak to you all soon.